The following program is a project of the students of Morphos Training for Television and Film, a project of the Mohammed Amin Foundation, supported in part by a grant from Open Society Initiative for East Africa. The views expressed in this program are not necessarily the views of the Mohammed Amin Foundation or Open Society Initiative for East Africa.
Let's get up for the band, man. The band.
We have a great crowd going on here tonight, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am Ann Mitaru Mumina.
And I'm Jimmy Gathu. Welcome to the HATUA show. This show is about being aware, taking responsibility, and last but not least, taking action to create positive change in society. It's about you and the role you can play in creating a better future for this country.
That's right, Jimmy. Today's show is about the stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS, a condition that has killed 22 million people worldwide since it began.
22 million is a lot of people.
It is.
But remember, that is over a span of 20 years. HIV and AIDS is not, I repeat, it is not the biggest killer in the world or in Kenya. Malaria is the #1 killer in Kenya, and AIDS comes perhaps a distant third. I've seen people say, hey, what's going on? Today, we seek to demystify HIV and AIDS. Stay here on HATUA. We'll be right back. Hang on.
Keep it here. Welcome back to HATUA. Today we want to demystify HIV/AIDS, a disease that inspires fear and stigma in many.
In Kenya today, when someone finds out that they are HIV positive, the immediate instinct is to keep this information private and not tell anyone, even their partners, for fear of being rejected. Why does this still happen even when it has become one of the most manageable diseases?
That's a very good question, Jimmy.
Let's watch this feature on HIV and AIDS before we start looking for answers to this question. Watch.
Many people imagine that getting HIV or being AIDS is just next to death.
I think first thing is writing a will.
This is just a disease, one among other diseases.
And we would hope that it doesn't exist.
If I test HIV positive, yenye life yangu inaweza kuwa tu ruined kabisa because yenye nitastressika sana.
Girls who are between the ages of 15 and 19 are 3 times more likely to be HIV infected as opposed to their male counterparts.
They say AIDS is a killer disease, but currently it's manageable.
Life changes, people start neglecting them, people start looking at them as if they are not human.
It's quite scary that somebody feels that once you've got this HIV thing, then you are somebody who is supposed to be dying slowly.
HIV is actually the viral infection which one has, and one can be HIV positive, can be absolutely healthy, cannot develop full-blown AIDS until much, much later. AIDS is a stage that you come to when one is seen to be sick. They're wasting away. That is when actually one has AIDS. So one can live with HIV for a long time without actually having AIDS. And there's an important distinction between the two.
The main cause of infection has been found to be sexual intercourse.
There are difficulties. Once somebody does come in for testing, be they male or female, and if they're positive, the next step is trying to get them to actually talk to their partner or spouse or whoever they're engaging with sexually to actually get them to come into the clinic. And that's I think, part of the problem that we're having now.
When he went for the test, he came back and didn't tell me his results, but he encouraged me to go and be tested.
They are encouraged somehow to start disclosing to the family members for their support.
When I came back home, I told my husband my status. Then that's when he told me, actually, even yesterday he was found positive.
The moment she told me that she was also HIV positive, to be sincere with you, is that inside me I was happy, because the moment I knew I was HIV positive, I was wondering how would I live with her if she was HIV negative.
The level of knowledge for HIV is gone to over 90%, yet the acceptance level is still coming out very slowly.
The worst part of it, if I may be precise, is my own mother going around the villages telling people that my son is soon dying. To me, killed me.
It's not as bad as it used to be. These days we have a lot of awareness that has been created. People are coming out in the public and talking about the HIV status, and they are going out to seek the services. We still have some people who keep away.
I remember telling a workmate of mine about my condition, and he almost ran away. I remember telling 2-3 other people who actually got stunned.
Stigma really, really affects this, because as people don't feel comfortable enough to talk about being HIV positive or comfortable enough to actually take their drugs, then we're actually increasing the problem.
Like the whole estate knew that we were positive, and we couldn't. If you don't have the courage to work, you cannot do your daily duties.
This continuing stigma means that we will have people who are not feeling comfortable enough to actually adhere to their treatment. What will happen in this country? Right now we have about 80,000 people who are on ARVs. If those 80,000 people have a situation of they're interrupting their treatment, what we will have a couple of years down the line is a situation of drug resistance, which then makes it once again very expensive to put people on treatment, because we now need a new regimen of drugs.
They are really quite productive people. They do not have to lose anything. They are going to work like anybody else. So there's no reason why they should be laid off just because of their HIV status.
Lack of employment has contributed to a lot of stress which we have undergone with my family. Because as you can see, we had to bring up our son. We also had to bring up my brother-in-law and sister-in-law here, who are now my children.
Why should the person whose status has been known be stigmatized or be removed from their work, their source of income, which will bring more burden to the family? Their bodies also will react well when they are taken positive.
I'm proud to say that there are many people who have gone for HIV test with encouragement from me. That much I'm proud.
Not everybody who is HIV positive needs treatment. Right? People can go 10, 15 years without needing any sort of treatment because their body is actually able to fight off the infection on its own. So they look perfectly healthy.
The idea of people soon dying should be forgotten.
Being positive is not being closer to death.
Nobody has got in his forehead or her forehead written HIV positive or negative. You'll not be able to detect that some of us look very healthy when we are actually loaded with these deadly viruses.
There are many people with other diseases, people with hypertension, cancer. Those are also terminal diseases at one point.
I'm really hoping that as a nation, one day we can actually get to a point where being HIV positive is just like having any other disease, right? If somebody says that they have cancer or diabetes or any other sort of chronic life condition, there is no stigma attached to that. So why should it be when people are HIV positive?
You know, it's at a time like this in this country when a lot has been going on as far as the fight against HIV. And I think one of the most difficult challenges we are facing right now is stigmatization. Some people continue to fight this good fight. Some were with us in the audience, and one who is going to represent the face of our discussion. Let's give a round of applause to our guest today, Boniface, who I grew up with.
How are you?
Fine. How
You
are you?
have been a crusader.
Yes.
For the years since you found out your status.
Yes.
How has your openness affected people who are both HIV positive and those who are negative? What has been the reception of your openness?
Many people have responded by going to the VCTs for testing. Many people have come to my place for counseling, free of charge.
Right.
Many people have been encouraged by talking like I'm talking now.
Good.
In public.
Good.
Because I've always told them that you've got to go and talk to people, even if you're a young man, in the estates, in towns, in the streets, so that we fight this stigma. The problem here is the stigma.
Problem is the stigma.
This is what I've been fighting.
What was it like? Let's go back to when you first found out that you were positive.
Yes.
Just very quickly, what was that like for you?
It was quite devastating on the first time that I'd learned about my HIV positive. But what I must say is that it was unprofessional for the doctor that actually made me know that I was HIV positive to reveal it to my brother without my consent. So these are some of the things that when I talk to people and when I talk to you today, I would like Kenyans to know that the professional area, when you want to expose somebody's HIV status, please be professional, because it will affect this person probably for the rest of his or her life.
There must have been somebody who encouraged you to speak.
Yes.
Perhaps you can tell us who that person is. Somebody who told you know what, Boniface, it's okay.
The person who encouraged me to be sincere is Honorable Ochila Yako, who happened to have served as a Minister of Energy in Kenya, as a very close friend.
If you are listening, kudos.
I must say that he is one person that I had to think of, because he came to my bed when I was admitted and I didn't really know what was going on, till he told me that it could be maybe the big one. And I said, let it be the big one so that we know, so that we can begin treating it. Because it was devastating if we could just be with the big one, and we don't know. Yeah. We used to call it the big one.
The big one.
So this is one friend that I cannot forget, and he's the person who actually cheered me up. He's the person who told me that you are a strong man. You are the one who should tell us about these things.
You have talked to us and told us about some of the good things that came from your openness.
Yes.
I believe also your openness had a stigma element to it. How did it present itself, and what was it like?
In the beginning, when I began talking to people, when I went door to door, some people would not even welcome me. That the moment they realized when to talk about HIV and AIDS and that you are positive, in fact, they would not even want their dishes or utensils to be near you. So it took time to actually let people know. That time I was living in the city area.
Okay.
And it took people really time to understand that not even kissing, for instance, right. I appreciate what the media has been doing by telling people how it is got. I think education has played a major role in stigmatizing and destigmatizing. So we have to say that the level of education in the society has really contributed to what is happening today. Had people been told about what stigma is, you know, when you say stigma to a class 4 student, it's a very big word. You have to dichotomize. Exactly. You have to dichotomize stigma. When you talk about stigma to a class 7 student, they'll think about the flower, the stigma. So,
I have a question, Boniface.
Yes,
when we talk about stigma, it starts from you.
Yes.
You know, and I'm glad you're living positively. But I'm concerned why you chose to tell your wife after she found out she was positive. Was there a specific reason for that?
What actually happened is that someone that you've lived with, you know somebody's psychology when you've lived with somebody. There's a way that you can present something to your wife because you know how she'll react. So it was my trick, so that when she actually knows that she's positive, she would have digested and she would have done a lot of things to herself. There are certain things you can't do to man by yourself.
Do you think she would have taken off, if she was negative, do you think she would have perhaps reacted to you differently?
No, I don't think, because it would have disapproved what we call in the Mtaa language, that I tuned her. I actually took time to talk to her to be my wife. So if she ran away from me, then it would mean that I did nothing. But I believe that I made her to understand that I was a husband.
Ruth is here. Ruth, his wife is here. Ruth, let's give her an applause. Good one, Ruth. Thank you. We'll talk to Ruth shortly. Part of this, perhaps the events after you stood up to say that you were HIV positive. How did that affect your work, the ministry? I believe you're working for the Ministry of Planning, is it? Or Ministry
Roads and Public Works.
Roads and Public Works, yes.
This was this was some time after I had known about my status and lived without work for so long. And I kept going to look for work. Never to find.
Hold on. So you lost your job at the ministry because you were positive?
In my understanding, that's how I looked at it. Though after I investigated, I found that somebody else took advantage of my status and went and
How did they find
out? Like I've told you, I talk publicly and I talk, let me say, carelessly.
Okay.
So, no.
So,
very...
Like if I go to a dispensary and I want to be treated quickly, I will say, some of us are HIV positive and we don't need this stress. I would use it even when I'm queuing for milk in a shop. You see, some of us don't like stress. We don't like this stress. It was devastating for my boss to actually terminate my course at a time that I really wanted to do something about HIV and AIDS in that position.
So the government terminated your services because you're HIV positive?
That is what I believe.
What's the most difficult thing, apart from the stigma?
Yes.
What is the most difficult thing about living with HIV?
Well, I think the economy of the country that we live in, or Africa generally, it is very stressful to live in Kenya with HIV if you know you are HIV positive. This is one thing that I have to reveal to you, because you will want to live positively, and people just say live positively, but you don't want to look into living positively. What does it involve? It involves eating well, sleeping in time,
and living normally, and being accepted.
If you are put to queue, for example, in a matatu, you want to go to Umoja Estate where I live, and you want to queue for the matatu for 3 hours standing, and you want to go and find no water in your taps, and then no electricity. Tell me, is the government of Kenya looking at the issue of stress in a sick society? I say a sick society because the rate of infection in Kenya, I don't know if you know, but I should tell you that in every one day, we have 165 to 170 people infected by AIDS. In one day, we have 300 Kenyans dying of AIDS. Please stand up for 1 minute and remember 300 Kenyans die every day of HIV and AIDS. So I think it is a dimension that many people just talk. We say juju. That is what those are the things that bite me.
I see. You have children, and
in fact, one is mine, but 3 are not mine. But they are my children.
Is it difficult for them? How do they receive it?
That is why when HATUA first came on my TV, I made an effort to come and sit here today. Well, how they relate with me is actually the action that should be taken. That is what stigma is all about.
Right.
From the family to your neighbors to the society. Now, they don't take it as you may imagine, because I always take my drugs in time, and I carried my certificate of adherence to show you that the program that I go to knows that I take this medication in time, and the discipline that involves it. So the children also get used to seeing you taking this medicine in time. It becomes part of your meal. So every time they see you eating, will they be thinking why you're eating? Because you eat together. So I must remember to thank the HATUA people that first visited me. That there's a lady that came with them. Yeah. I don't remember the name. But
we'll introduce you to her. After
I remember she actually gave me a challenge, and on the World AIDS Day, I took my family, whole family now, for test. Because when you want to talk to the society,
you must first start at the beginning. We must take a break now. When we come back, perhaps let's talk about destigmatizing or demystifying HIV and AIDS. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Our topic of discussion this evening is the stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS. The stigma has led to the spread of AIDS in many ways. We seek to demystify AIDS so that we can finally confront it head on as a nation and most importantly, as individuals. Now we've got Mwihaki in the audience. Mwihaki, welcome. Welcome, Mwihaki.
Mwihaki is the program manager and the HIV desk with AMREF.
Exactly.
Welcome once again.
Demystifying HIV, I think that's where we need to start from. Because it is a fact, and unless I read my own things, HIV and AIDS may have killed many people and continues to do so, as Boniface says. But the fact is, it is not the biggest killer.
No, it isn't. And you're right, Jimmy. Malaria is still the biggest killer right now. And there's this recognition, I think, that HIV is with us because of the way in which it's at the forefront of everything right now. And it has a special category, if I may call it that, because we don't stigmatize across any other disease. But why do we discriminate against people who are HIV positive? And I think it has to do with the origins, really, of how people think that people got.
So the question is, what role does culture play in contributing to the stigmatization related to HIV/AIDS? What's the role of culture?
Maybe culture and also our norms, right? And the sort of faiths or moral standpoints from which we come. We think that if somebody is HIV positive, that means that they were doing something that they weren't supposed to.
So there's a moral-based
because of the way in which HIV is passed through sexual contact, right? So we feel that surely if somebody was infected, they were up to no good. But that isn't the case, really.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of people are in married, faithful relationships. Right now we say that the most vulnerable person is the woman who is at home, faithful to her husband, right? Or the man who is at home, faithful to his wife, but doesn't know what his or her partner is actually doing.
So I'm just wondering, is it because of HIV not having a sort of a cure?
When I think about certain parts of Kenya, having amongst the population, over 30% of the people are actually HIV positive. But they go about their lives, and life does continue. It is a condition, and it's a condition that people are living with. There are people who have lived 20, 25 years. We've seen the example of Assunta Wagura now, having a negative baby. I mean, life does go on, whether you're HIV positive or not.
I don't know, from the audience, what do you think are some of the things that would contribute to stigma? Yes, I see this hand, gentleman at the front.
My name is George Kiduma. To me, I think what she said is, when person tells you about HIV/AIDS, your mind clicks to sex. And sex, according to our community, it's like a taboo. It's something that you're not supposed to talk about it. So to me, I was thinking like, if we grow in a community whereby sex is just a normal thing that God created for us to have it, and it's something enjoyable, yes, and it's something that everyone is doing and we like doing it.
Something that God created.
Yeah. Something.
So it's good.
It's good, and we like it, and it's there, and we cannot hide away from it.
It's true.
So the moment we teach our children, our people, that we have sex in the world and sex is good and sex is done in the right way, I think we can go down in eradicating the stigma around HIV.
I think that's why. I like what you say. We've got Denise Davenport up there. Let's give a round of applause, Denise. Right there. Denise goes door to door in as far as educating the masses about HIV and AIDS. Now, Denise, he talked about sexuality as perhaps one of the reasons why we find it difficult to speak openly about HIV and AIDS. Now, you do this every day. You go door to door and encourage people to speak about it.
Well, I would agree that that's definitely one of the issues. And we do a lot of home-based care, so we're dealing with people who are already HIV positive. But we do try and educate them also about sharing with their family, sharing with their friends the situation. But I do think that the sex issue, it is a taboo.
It is a taboo,
But
yes.
I think he made a very good point about sex being done, I believe he said, in the right way.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we talk about are the ABCs,
yes,
of AIDS education. A being for abstinence, B standing for being faithful, and of course C being for condoms. So sex is good. God made it. He wants us to enjoy it. But I think one of the things we do need to remember and educate people about is having sex within the right context and appropriately so that we are not contributing.
Perhaps I'll throw a question to Ruth, Boniface's wife. Let's give her a round. I think you're a strong woman. What is it like living with HIV and AIDS as a woman?
I must say it's tough, you know, for you to know that you're HIV positive. You must have the heart and you must be strong. The first day I knew my status, I was like, it's you. He was like, it's you. So we kept on.
Mulipigana?
No.
Okay. Just want to know.
We just kept on blaming each other. It's you brought it, it's you. Though he knew I've never been unfaithful to him until the day we found that we were positive. So it's tough because even my mother-in-law, since she knew that we were positive, she has never come near us. In fact, the last time I saw her was in 2001.
Has the stigmatization been by other members of the family as well, neighbors? Maybe
no, where we live now, I don't think people know that our status. Apart from I have like 2 or 3 friends who are my close friends who knows about my condition. But our relatives, okay, my husband told most of them about our status, but few come to visit us. In fact, they don't come. We are always alone, me and him and our children.
Do you think, and maybe both of you can answer, do you think this is because they're afraid they can get the disease? Is it because they do not have enough information on the disease? Is it because they're, what do you think are the reasons?
I think because they don't have enough information about HIV and AIDS, and in fact, most of them are waiting for us to die. Since we knew our status, it has been like 6 years and we are still alive. I wonder when I'm going to...
You say 6 years?
Wow. In fact, my mother-in-law has even told people some knew that we had died and we were buried because we never go home. We are always here in Nairobi. With close friends,
you know
we
what?
are always there.
Cancer, back in the day in the 70s, was a massive thing. Now it's not. You know, even chickenpox, even dysentery used to be bad. You know, when it was first discovered, nikubaya. So we are here now. So how do we remove the stigma from community?
Oh, well,
how do we do that?
If you allow me to chip in.
Yes, please.
I think we must not forget, for instance, the services of our pastors and our spiritual leaders in all areas that we worship God. It is because of our behavior towards God. Prayer has become like eating sweet. So I think the way that we are behaving and our attitude towards God, whichever God you are worshiping, has really contributed to what is happening today in our country.
But now
people,
because when you put God into it,
yes,
now you're making it a moral issue. That's me, really. If you put God into it and say it's how you pray or lack of praying, then come on, God basi ananipunish.
No. That is you now getting me on the wrong leg. Now, what I'm trying to say is that once you go to church regularly and you go sincerely, then your behavior will also be somehow tamed. You'll
there
be
you
tamed.
Are again. It's not a moral thing, Boniface.
So what I'm trying to say is that the behavior aspect of it, if you want to discuss stigma and all these things, you must consider is it how we live? Because if you look at man, most diseases that affect man come through the mouth. Most diseases that affect us is waterborne. You see, if I say cholera, you'll think about water. If I say bilharzia, you'll think about water. It's what you eat, how you behave, that contributes so much to what is happening to you any one time. So I would think when it comes to the area of stigma, it's how do we accept, for example, promiscuous dressing? Does it become an issue? How do we accept prostitution? How do we talk about it in our society? How do we talk about seeing billboards next to primary school written, "Tumia condom"? Does this primary school kid need to tumia condom? So there are certain things that have not been put in order.
There's a question I've always wanted to find out from you.
Yes.
Are VCTs effective? Have they been able to make a change?
Thank you very much, because when you begin with the letter V, I feel already provoked. My blood moves because we are talking about a pandemic. We are talking about war on a pandemic. We are talking about something that is taking 300 people daily. We are talking about a situation where human life is being lost, 300 people daily. If only 5 people can die and you fly a flag half-mast, how about 300?
You know what I think is VCT centers will not work, especially if the issue of stigmatization is there. I don't think, because once we talk about religion, we talk about how you behave. I want us to understand that HIV and AIDS is a disease. Once we understand it's a disease, VCT centers will work. That's my view. And we'll be right back on our tour. Stay here with us. That's my view.
Welcome back to the HATUA show. In today's show, we're talking about HIV, AIDS, and stigmatization. Just before we went on break, Boniface, you were saying about voluntary VCTs, voluntary counseling, testing centers. Are you suggesting that VCT and testing needs to be mandatory as opposed to voluntary?
I'm suggesting that the word voluntary should be taken out of VCT. I'm saying that people should be counseled and tested. I'm saying that we're handling a pandemic. I'm saying that people should not, we should look for ways and means, not forcing people rather, because people will talk about rights. People will come talking about rights even when we're discussing a pandemic. So let people discuss rights, but let's come up with intelligent ways to force people to go for testing. What I'm saying is that, for example, if I'm a police officer and I meet you and ask you for your identity card, national identity card, why shouldn't I ask you for your card which shows that you know your status? I don't need to know your status. So it is upon the legislators and the lawmakers to come up with something. Just going to know your status. Because once you know your status, then I think you'll know how to live with your status. You don't need to tell me your status.
We've got a pastor, please,
Omulubi.
Let's give Pastor a round of applause. Pastor umesikia vile Boni amesema kwamba inadependa vile sisi uomba Mungu. Now, I have an issue with that because I think we should just go down to the fact that it is a disease. But I appreciate the church has a role to play.
As we all understand, the church's response initially to HIV/AIDS was, if you have it, it's because you are immoral, and therefore we don't want to have anything to do with you. It was an attitude problem.
Still is, yes.
Still is. By and by, the church is changing. People are beginning to accept that anybody can have it. Pastor, church member, somebody from the bar, prostitute, whoever, anybody is a problem across the board.
What is the role of the government is a question we should be asking in reducing stigmatization and stigma. I know Stanley Malai is here with us from NACC. Welcome very much. National AIDS Control Council. Could you tell us what is the role of government? What are government efforts? What has the government been doing with the issues relating to stigma?
Thank you very much. As we are aware, HIV/AIDS was declared a national disaster in 1999. Before then, the government just kept quiet, wishing that the disease would disappear. But when it came to bear that this disease was not going away, the government of the day declared HIV and AIDS a national disaster, and that meant that now we could commit our resources and time to deal with the issue. So the policies we are talking of are issues to do with testing. Before the law came into play, we were not sure which way we are going towards testing.
What are some of the laws relating directly to discrimination? Discrimination in the workplace, for example. Could you tell us about that?
Most of the laws that we were relying on to fight HIV/AIDS were modeled along other issues like human rights, like gender issues, like children issues. And we were trying to use such laws to see how they can fit into HIV/AIDS. Right now we are saying we have a law that squarely falls into what the fight against HIV and AIDS, such that now, if for instance we want a policy that deals with the youth, behavioral communication for youth on HIV and AIDS, what would be the basis of that? And how are we sure we are within the limits of even other existing laws?
I see what you mean.
Yes.
Moyaki, you wanted to say something.
Actually, I wanted to respond to something which you had brought up earlier. I get a little jittery when we start talking about mandatory testing because we shouldn't be forcing anybody actually to be testing. The government has actually gone ahead from actually providing
just voluntary counseling and testing centers. I'm sure you've all seen the purple signs everywhere. But just as an indication, I'd like to know how many people in the audience know their status? How many people? I'm very glad to see that because a lot of people here are young. You're young and you need to know if you're positive, how to live positively, and if you're negative, how to try and stay negative. So I'm very happy to see that. What the government now is introducing in a lot of hospitals is routine counseling and testing. So for instance, when a woman comes in for an ANC check when she's pregnant, she's offered an HIV test just like any other test. And this is how we're trying to demystify the whole HIV problem. So along with being tested for HB, for gonorrhea, for everything else. HIV is also there. And with that, we've seen levels of about 95% of women actually say, okay, fine, just test me. Because they know that after that, they will actually be taken care of. And that's a very positive step.
Exactly.
That's great.
Made.
The gentleman right next to you.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Freddy Kuthual.
Freddy Karibu, makofi for Freddy.
Thank you very much. And I work with Muhaki. I think we as parents, we are not open to our children. Discussing HIV/AIDS with children, I've gone to houses. Me, I'm positive. I've gone to houses. When you start discussing this, you find parents telling their children to leave, go to sleep.
Go do your homework.
We want to talk something. Yes, that is very, very important. If parents can be open and let this thing be discussed openly in the front of children, I think we can make a step forward.
Make a difference.
Exactly. The gentleman behind them. The gentleman behind them. Yes.
Secondly, I've got two points. This about some people have made this HIV issue IGA, income generating activity. There are so many CBOs and NGOs which have been formed. The name that they are going to help orphans and also those people who are affected. What's the government doing? Are they doing enough vetting to know these CBOs or NGOs being formed? What are their aims?
Thank you. I'm sure Malai will respond to that. The gentleman over here, yeah. Tell us your name and your thoughts, sir.
My name is Patrick Kihima. I work with the Liverpool VCT. And I think VCT has played a great role in fighting stigma because like Liverpool, what we do, we go out for community mobilization and creation of awareness and sensitizing the community. And like now we have introduced a mobile VCT whereby we reach the community at the doorstep. And that one actually helps because now we address each individual from every level, like in schools and all the levels, at the community level, the churches and so on and so forth. Yeah, we do the testing, but we have to follow the guidelines. We don't test the children in VCT. We have to test according to what the guidelines provide.
Good one, good one. One last comment from this side. Yes, there's a lady here.
Grace.
Grace, Grace, welcome.
I'm from National Organization of Peer Educators. You see, family is a very important institution.
This whole fight, that's right, yes.
But we have grown up in a society where the most you know about your parents is maybe what they work, where they work, what they are at their workplaces, and what time they come home. There's no bond. So when it reaches a certain age and the youth begin having sex, they can't just go and say, "Mommy, you know, I have a boyfriend and I've been sleeping with him for 3 years. Is it good to use condoms, or is it good to use other contraceptives?"
I agree. I know we're running out of time, but let me ask, I'm sorry to stick with you, Moehaki, but just, and perhaps somebody else can help me with this question. Do you think that we have a long way to go because of culture? She has raised a very powerful point there, that we don't even know what our parents do apart from my dad works here and he comes home at this time.
Culture is also ever dynamic. The culture that we had 10 years ago doesn't mean that it has to be the culture that we have today. So then in the age of HIV, we have to figure out as Kenyans what's our new culture. One last thing, I'd just like to lay down a challenge. In terms of changing perceptions, what we need are positive role models. We need people who are successful Kenyans to be out there saying, "I'm HIV positive and look at me." And just as one last statistic, we have, 222 MPs. Our national prevalence rate right now is about 7%, which means about 18 MPs minimum are probably positive. If an MP stood up today and said, "I've been HIV positive for 10 years and I'm an MP," can you imagine the revolution that would cause in this country?
Maybe we'll take 1 2 opinions. Boniface, what's one solution? What HATUA can I take?
First of all, love people who are HIV positive.
Love.
Let them understand that they are only sick and let them know that there's medication Let them know that there's ARVs in hospital. Let them feel relaxed. Relax the situation.
Stay on HATUA. We'll be right back. We'll be right back. Stay here. That's a powerful guy.
Just before we went on break, we had one view we had to take before we come to the crossroads of what we shall do. At the back, what can be a best practice that we can share? At the very back, Denise and the lady next to you.
My name's Margaret Lavonga.
Hi, Margaret, welcome.
I'm very thankful to be here. What I may say is, myself, I'm HIV positive, and I'm a student. It doesn't matter if you're positive that you can stop being active in the society, and the stigma should stop because we are just human beings like others.
The stigma should stop.
Yeah.
The stigma should stop. Denise, one last word before we go to the crossroads.
Well, I would like to say, first of all, I would disagree somewhat with a statement that was made earlier about the regulations of the CBOs and some of the organizations that are specifically supposed to be assisting people with HIV/AIDS. It has been my personal experience since I've been here that many of those organizations are not really being monitored, or there's not a watchdog for those.
Well, a lot of people managed to live with HIV and AIDS for many years after finding out their status. Now, all you need to do is take your medicine and eat well. There are far more life-threatening diseases than HIV and AIDS.
Let us meet at the crossroads to chukua hatua. Demystifying HIV/AIDS starts with you. Simply taking the initiative to know your own status will go a long way to ending the stigma and protecting yourself.
I want Boniface to say something. What do you want the society to do for you?
I would like you people to encourage those of us that come out like have done, give us the encouragement, the logistics, the financial, moral support, so that we can go door to door, talk to these people, instead of waiting for them to volunteer and then come and be cancelled and tested. It's a long, long process. So with the person you're protecting, just to finish up, is that all of you did not remember that the war is actually centered somewhere. We are generals at war. The war is centered at the person who is HIV negative.
Exactly.
We are protecting the person who is HIV negative. This is what the war is.
Let me tell you.
The person who is HIV positive is on ARVs and is eating well.
What my HATUA would be. My HATUA would be this. I am waiting for that time, and I'll be a part of this, where anyone, perhaps, maybe even somebody I employ, I will let them earn a living, because HIV and AIDS is a disease. They can live positively. They must earn a living, because that is how they can survive. They're able to buy water, buy food, educate their children, because above all else, they're not looking for pity. They want to know that they are normal. So treat them normally. That's my HATUA. What is yours? Thank you for watching. My name is Jimmy Gathu.
And I'm Ann Mitaru. We had a lovely show.
Tangu zamani haki zetu hatukujua, umefikia wakati wako nami kuchukua hatua.